Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's yours.
Phew. Okay. It's a lot of people. So I guess you could say that this breaks my attendance record. So it's broken. So thank you for Ben and Creative Mornings Austin asking me to be a part of this series. We've been talking about it for a while, and now that it's happening, I'm completely out of my skin right now. So bear with me. When Ben approached me, he basically gave me a list of the series talking points and the themes. And he said, just let me know if any of them speak to you. And the only two that spoke to me were weird and broken. And that tells you how I describe my mind. But once I started really thinking about it and breaking it down, broken there's nothing that really describes what I do better than broken, because I take broken stuff that nobody wants anymore, take it home, visualize what can I do with it, and then start putting it together. And if any of you have ever thought about doing anything like what I'm about to show you, do it. Because I've been doing art for 25 years, really my whole life, but the salvage wood part 10 years. I basically bought a table saw to work on a house that I bought. Didn't know how to use a table saw, was scared. I'm still scared of it, so which is good. Just do it. Don't be afraid of failing, because I've failed so many times in doing whatever I'm doing. It just makes you build on that and build it better the next time. So I encourage everybody to go outside of your comfort zone, take a different direction, and I don't think you'll feel bad about that. So thank you to Ben and Ann and Cameron and everybody else that's put up with me through this whole ordeal. And George P. Johnson, this is an amazing office. So thank you for having all of us. So even as a kid, I've always been drawn to finding broken stuff laying around. I've always been a dumpster diver. I've always been finding stuff sitting out on the side of the street for trash. Even me and my brother found a long nail. We're like, this is the biggest nail I've ever seen. And it was bent. And so as kids, and we're talking like 6 and 8 years old, we threw it up in the air, and whichever way the point would land, that was our treasure finder. So we would just follow it. And we would find hubcaps and quarters and just stuff that we were like, it works, So we've, kept all this stuff, took it back to our playhouse, and, that was our stuff. So it's always kind of come organically to me to use whatever's laying around and be resourceful. And that stuff has character. It's like character's already built into it. You don't have to, polish it up or anything. It's just rusty and beat up and used, and I love that whole aesthetic. So as you'll see in some of my art, and I brought a lot of pictures to show you guys to scroll through. I didn't go to school for art, so I didn't have it pounded into my brain to stick to one style. I have a lot of different styles that I don't always feel like listening to jazz every day or country or rock and roll. So I don't want to paint the same thing every day. So it helps me, if I don't feel like doing one thing, it helps me create, stay away from my creative blocks from going from style to style. And I brought samples of all of that stuff. So when I started thinking about broken and how it pertains to how it got me to where I am now, basically I just thought about how art has healed me from being broken. Like 24 years ago, I went through a major depression. I was suicidal, having suicidal thoughts, just totally depressed. And my therapist the first thing she said is, find a hobby. So I got back into art, and 25 years later, I'm standing in front of you people. What are you doing here? Talking about how it can help us, and and broken always has like a negative connotation stuck to it, and for creatives like us, it's always been our friend, because people come to us when stuff is broken. A lot of you guys do marketing. people contact you, say our sales aren't up to par, we would like to fix this, how can we fix our logo or our marketing approach or whatever. So all of this comes full circle to where broken isn't always bad, it's actually creative's friend. So with that being said, like 7 years ago, I was working at a job that I hated, and my boss hated everybody hated him. But I was there for 7 years, and I put up with it because I was afraid to walk away from my paycheck. But I remember one day I was sitting in the Taco Bell parking lot on my phone with my fiance, my beautiful wife now, and I was crying. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And she was like, quit. I was like, yeah. You're right. And so I quit. And I took a job at a friend's business doing shipping, receiving, lawn maintenance for $10 an hour. But I was happy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I figured it out. I don't need to keep chasing money. I need to keep chasing happiness. So when you're broken, you can fix it and you can fix it better. Just don't be okay with being broken like I was for so long. So learn from me. Don't work for people that don't appreciate you. So I'm going to go into some pictures, and hopefully I won't scan through these too fast, but we're going to do some Q&A at the end, and hopefully you guys have some questions that I can answer. So this is my studio. It's a converted shipping container, and this is in our backyard, so we were lucky enough to have a place where I can bring this and put it into the backyard. So and that's my girl Augie. She's my shop helper. So basically I built out the whole container with salvaged wood as well. This is my friend's old privacy fence that I painted up and chopped up and just started building it. And that's the workbench area. This is basically how I store my wood until I feel like making the salvaged wood canvases that I make. So I'll just basically make a big pile on my workbench and just start going for it. The most asked question I get is, where do you find your wood? And it is everywhere. Like, I bet we can walk outside. Let's all go outside right now, and then we'll find some. If you put the word out that you're looking for something that nobody wants, you'll be turning it down quick. So this was how I set my studio up for the West Austin studio tour. I was getting ready to go out and buy some plywood for walls, and my wife was like, well, why don't you just build it out of all that scrap wood you have? And again, she was right. So this is one of the piles that I came across, and that's about 10 feet high. And then, what I do is just go picking through it, and then that was my car afterwards. So then I just take this home and I start washing it. Some of it I don't even know what color it is until I get it home and scrub it down and disinfect it and wash it. So this is the piece that I wanted to bring up, a piece that I made. So this is the piece of wood that I started with, and I took a picture of it because it's broken. And I know. So basically what I do is I just start chopping it up on my chop saw and my table saw and just cut all the splintered pieces off. And I'm sure there's an artist out there that can use my splintered pieces. Please contact me, and I'll have everything ready for you. So the end piece is this piece. So basically I wanted to just show like what I start with and then what I can accomplish, what we can all accomplish with something that was basically headed towards a landfill. And then there's another shot of it. And I started doing these Texas pieces about 4 years ago, and I don't do them quite as often now because it's everywhere, like everybody's doing these. So I still do them every once in a while, and my style is a lot different than a lot of people's out there, but I wanted to show some samples. of some of the random pieces. So this one is salvaged piano key arms. And so the black pieces are the parts of the black keys on the piano. And once I oil it, and all those different colors really gel together really well. And I use a lot of license plates and discarded cans and bottle caps. So, this one's called Water Buckies. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. And this one's about 5 feet wide as well. And so the license plate was salvaged from the fires, the Bastrop wildfires in 2011. And I was part of an art project that you had to go salvage materials from the fire and make an art piece for a fundraiser, and that license plate was left behind afterwards, so I grabbed it for a different piece. So that's the previous 6-footer. So I was recently asked to do a commemorative poster for the Deep Eddy Pool for their 100th anniversary, and I'll have a closer up shot of this one here later in the presentation, but it was fun to go outside of my comfort zone, like I said, and kind of just paint instead of build my initial plan was to build a pool out of the wood, but I wanted to do something that showed the lane swimmers and everybody with all their different beach towels. This one's called the Working Man Blues, and these are all salvaged wood slats that I just had a lot of fun fitting as much type in as I could and driving myself crazy. And a lot of imagery that I use, I'll find in vintage magazines, because I was always attracted, as a kid reading comic books, I was always reading the advertisement pages more than I was reading the comics, and thinking, wow, if I could order everything in here, I would really be happy, but I'll just look at all these little pictures. So a lot of the imagery I use are the little illustrations in the images that I blow up, and it gives it kind of a cool, rough look. This one's called Beg, Steal, and Borrow. I painted that on a piece of plexiglass I found in an artist studio that the artist was mixing paint on, and he left it behind. This is called Big Chief. And this is again one of those little illustrations for a cowboy hat company back in the 50s. This was a commission piece, and she wanted her husband's 55 Chevy brought to life. And this was the same wood that I used on the piece that I showed you, but we estimated the shelf was from around the 50s, so I thought it would be interesting to use it for his car. This is just a random screen printed background that I painted and used a bingo card on. So this was a collaboration I did with Bobby Dixon. Bobby Dixon's sitting over here, if you guys don't know him. Great illustrator. So I built the canvas, he did the type work. This is also another one that we did. I do a lot of little bottle paintings, and this one's done on an old cabinet door. So this is a close-up of the Deep Eddy. You can see, I just wanted to show a lot of movement and fun splashing around in the pool. This is a big mural that I did at Frank downtown, a public art wall that will now be covered by a skyscraper. So everybody, that one's long gone, but they did a different public art piece every few months, and I was happy to be a part of it. So these are little type pieces. And what I want people to understand is I do use a lot of reoccurring themes in my stuff, but I want the background, the wood, to do a lot of the work, and they're all one-of-a-kind art, pieces of art, just because of the backgrounds I could never replicate if I wanted to. It's an old George Jones painting that I did for an art show. This is on an old bar stool that I found, the seat of an old bar stool. So what I wanted to show with this one is because I envy all of you that can sit and do a study drawing of a painting or a drawing you want to do. The top one is my study drawing. So I don't execute study drawings near as well as most people, but as long as I get it out of my head onto a piece of paper, I can tackle it later. But that's the piece. These are Texas brands, mostly Texas cattle ranch brands. And I bought this book to learn about cattle ranch brands, and it blew my mind, the history behind it, and not the most ethical, I understand it, but the history behind it and how they come up with their designs and how they would keep track of each other's cattle through those little markings really is interesting to me. This is a piece I did when I was having kind of a hard time with self-confidence, and it's kind of just came out of me. And this is called Look Inside, because we're constantly being bombarded with bad news and negativity, and it's kind of hard to get away from it a lot of times. But inside of us is that, the positivity that we need, and we really need to focus more on trusting ourselves and being the person you want to be, not the person you think other people are looking at you as. This is Ron Swanson. So this is a piece. Thank you. So I had this idea, and luckily it's been a hit with people. So my apologies to vegans and vegetarians in the room too. So I did a whole series of those, and they're pretty fun. So this was done on a piece of burlap that I found. And I used to do a lot of face paintings on canvas, and this is just to represent, this is my older style. And then once I started working on wood, I was kind of hooked. So I don't work on canvas quite as often near as often as I used to, but I still do have canvas pieces. And this is starting the abstract style that I do. Sometimes I'll find old signs and I'll start slicing them up if they're not worth anything, and just start reorganizing them, revisualizing them, whatever you want to call it. This started when my friend in Indianapolis gave us an open sign. It was just a hand-painted open sign, really nice, but not nice enough for us to hang on to. We have too much stuff, but I just started slicing it up so I could, oops, sorry. To build a salvage wood canvas that I could do a painting on. And then once I put it together, I was like, that's pretty much exactly what I've been wanting to do abstract-wise. So this was the first sign that I ever found after the initial one. So this is my dog asking me what I'm doing with my life. But the signs were completely dry rotted, and I called this guy and asked him if I could have his signs that were falling off the side of his building, and he acted like I was the craziest person ever. So this is what I made from it. So these are a lot of fun. I figured out a few ways to do different styles. I'll sometimes paint some paneling if I find paneling, and then this is an old baby crib that I found that I painted up and just chopped up and used. And this one's called Casablanca. These are one of the panels that I had painted and then deconstructed and reconstructed. This one's called Cosmosis. This one's called Family. And this one was commissioned for the Callahan House down at UT. And they hung it horizontal. This one's called Hypnosis. And this was a different style that I did. I work a couple days whenever my friends need me at Bearded Lady Screen Printing, and they're very encouraging for me to use their equipment. And so we screen printed these I started saving all the Lone Star boxes from 6-packs and 12-packs and 24-packs, and I didn't drink any of them. And then I just started chopping them up and putting them back together. So that was the art print that is laying up on the table up front. So this was a skateboard done for the Loop project. They were raising money to build a skate park in Taylor, Texas. And again, this is old salvage piano key arms. And then, again, this was a canvas I built to paint on, and then I figured it was too pretty to mess up. And this was the first abstract piece I did, the open sign that I sliced up. It's called Open Under New Construction. And another piano key arm piece. And this one's called Pocahontas. This is, again, I added some color to the pieces. And these are the wood cuts. Sometimes I'll take the colors of wood and then cut out the shapes that I want to build certain imagery. This one's called Blue Collar Happy Hour Attire. So this one's actually was commissioned by a cafe in Australia, and that's Mount Warning in Australia. I did some first aid series. This is an abstract piece. Oops. This one's called Mustang Island. My wife had that idea for the name, and that was way before I even made it to Mustang Island down by Port A. This one's called Picnic Time. This one's called Quittin' Time. This one's called After Work Fence Beers. So my friend had contacted me, and she had this old crate lid that she was going to toss. And this is from an old ranch that was outside of Austin. It's probably not outside of Austin anymore. It's probably in Austin. But they bought a small house, and they just hoarded everything from their ranch. And she was like, "You got to come over and get the stuff." So what I love about it is you can see where a little animal chewed the bottom corner so they could get to whatever was in the crate. This is another power line piece. This one's called Match Made in Heaven. And this is one of the Roadrunner pieces I've done. And sometimes I'll contact photographers and ask them for permission. So this is a photographer named Andy Cook out in Colorado. He gave me permission to use his photo for pieces. This is called Sometimes Life is a Horse Named Shitstorm. So I try to have a lot of fun with my titles as well. So I realized a lot of the natural wood reminded me of like hot Texas summer days. So I started putting different colors together just to kind of represent like a hazy Texas summer day. This one's called The Heat of Two Suns. And this is, when I don't feel like doing art, I'll start building furniture for our house. And so this is a dining room table just made out of salvaged gym flooring from Bloomington, Indiana, that my friend had in his building. He was ready to get rid of it. This is just a little end table that I call a beginning table. And then I build birdhouses, and this is a coffee table. My friend Christian Helms at Helm Workshop had these old whiskey barrel rings laying around outside their studio. And I asked him if I could have one because I had an idea. And I bought some hairpin legs and made a coffee table out of it. So I find a lot of the crappy 2x4s. So I started realizing I could build a lot of utilitarian type stuff like drink tables for the fire pit and our fire pit stools. And the one that says no asses, I built that one and the legs are too close together, so my friends were wiping out too much. So my wife had an idea just to paint no asses, and I made it no asses, only bottles, cans, and glasses. So that's the outdoor taco table. That was built out of an old bed frame. The legs are the old bed bed frame, and the top is my friend's old privacy fence. How we doing on time? Doing good? Good. And these are my shop helpers. This is Augie and Indiana sweet corn, and peppercorn and Georgie Jones. So, in closing, I just want to again say thank you for spending your time letting me talk to you guys about what I do and how Broken has helped me get to this point. And like I said, I've been doing this, finding junk and trash since I was a kid, so it comes naturally to me. But I ask all of you to take a look at stuff a little bit differently now, and maybe you can build something for your house or something. So thank you guys.